Filming.
Anyway, so I started right as soon as I got out of high school. Went there. They came and talked to, people and talked to the teachers to see. I would love to have thought I wanted to go on to college, but we didn't have the money for that. And I didn't know I could get, I didn't know I could get a scholarship.
Oh, scholarship, you would have had it too.
Well, years later, at one of the reunions, my business teacher said to us, "I'm so surprised that you didn't take one of those scholarships when you were in college." I said, "Well, I didn't know I could, and we didn't have the money."
Did you have a counselor?
No, no counselors.
No one clued you into that, that's sad.
Didn't know anything about it. So, I had enough money to go to business college and been there about 6 months, and the teacher told me and this friend Maddie that Metropolitan Life Insurance was looking for office help, and they wanted to know one or two people recommended so they could choose one of us. And so I went for the interview, and she did too, but she had already interviewed for one at a bank also. And I could take dictation at that time, 120 words a minute. And I was a good typist. She was too. We were pretty equal. But anyway, she decided to take the job at the bank, so I just automatically got the job at Metropolitan Life. Then found out I had to go and have a physical first, and then meet a doctor. So I almost turned it down because I was scared of that. I didn't know what they were going to do or anything. The office supervisor there, who was 37 whenever I started working, I was 17. And she kind of took me under her wing and helped me explain things to me. That was really great.
Finally, somebody.
Yeah. And then I started working there and worked there until I got pregnant with Chris. And at that time, they didn't allow pregnant women to work. That's probably why. So I worked myself up to assistant office supervisor, and so I had to quit when I was pregnant with Chris, and then went back to work after he was born, but they had not hired another assistant office supervisor yet. So I was able to get right back into the job. The manager did that for me, and was so glad to have me back and everything. And it was really funny. Took me out to lunch one day and was telling me about he was so glad to have me back and we could get back, the way we were, because I was like his personal secretary and everything. And that afternoon I had a doctor's appointment because I had not been feeling well. But I didn't know what was wrong with me. Still green. I went to the doctor and they said I was pregnant again. So I had to go back and tell him that after all of that. So that time,
How old was Chris?
Chris there's 15 or 16 months difference in them.
Oh, I didn't realize they were that close. Yeah.
16?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember. I could count it up. Anyway, so at that time, when Neil and I got married, I was making more money than he was, and he also had some debts. So we took care of those, or I took care of those with some insurance policies that I had through Metropolitan, cashed them in so I could start out clean. Anyway, he was working for the Mark Twain National Forest by that time. So we had bought, with Chris, we had just bought this house. It's almost 2 acres, about 9 miles outside of Springfield. And then shortly after we bought the house and everything, got the papers signed. Took a while to get it because Neil was going on the GI loan, and there was some debt problems there that they had to get straightened out with this credit rating. Anyway, so we finally got approved and got the house, and not too long after that then, I got pregnant with Chris. So, I'd hoped that I could work with that, you know, with just getting the house for no one, couldn't we? But anyway, back to Greg, I got pregnant with Greg, and the doctor told me he was going to be born in July.
You thought it was gonna be a girl.
Well, you know, both times the doctor told me
Both times.
I was gonna have a girl, and I wanted a girl. I didn't know anything about boys. See, I had sisters. I had not around any boys at all. My dad was hardly ever there, so I wanted a girl. And Greg knows that. Chris does too. But anyway, I wouldn't trade him for anything. But anyway,
That's not what I heard you say the other day.
what did I say? I traded for
I'm
good
teasing.
chocolate.
Just because he's listening, I had to say that, I'm sorry.
I don't hear a thing.
Anyway.
Okay. So they knew, yeah.
So I did quit when Greg was born, but he wasn't born until August. The first time when Chris was born, my sister that I hardly ever speak to now, she had a 2-year-old son. That was her first one, and she came down from Kansas City to stay with me, and just about drove me crazy. So whenever I was pregnant with Greg, I didn't really tell anybody when he was going to be due because I didn't want her coming back.
I can do it myself.
That's right. And, well, you know, having a 2-year-old around and you're pregnant for the first time, and anyway, it was just a mess. So anyway, both times Neil was gone, fighting fires someplace else. Whenever they had big fires, they took people from, you know, different forests to go fight them.
Okay, so he was firefighter?
Well, he wasn't. He was a draftsman. He made a lot of the signs for the Forest Service, and the one that actually still is there for Mark Twain was his design. But whenever they needed firefighters back then, in those years, see, that was both boys born 67, the next one was born 68. Back then, they took people, you know, that worked for the Forest Service wherever they could get them. He'd have to be out in the forest a lot of times helping clear stuff, you know, and that's why I think that's when I'd get poison ivy so bad he'd come back and it'd be on his clothes and I wouldn't know it. But anyway, Greg wasn't born until July, and I did not tell. We had company over. We were playing cards, and I didn't tell them until the very last minute because I didn't want them to say, we need to go to the hospital, we need to go to the hospital, you know.
It sounds just like you.
So it just barely got there in time for Greg to be born. But that was nice. If I had all do it over again, I'd done it with Chris too. I remember Neil came in and said, oh, honey, he said, hold on to my hand when it hurts. I said, I hate you, get out of here. I didn't want to see him.
You did this to me.
That's right.
Take it back.
Dirty rotten rat.
I kept wanting to get up and go to the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom instead. I didn't want to do it in the bed. The nurse said, honey, no, it's not that. It's the baby's coming. It's the baby's coming. You don't have to go to the bathroom. We already went. You first got here. We've taken care of all of that. You know, and I just knew that she was lying to me. She was going to mess the bed up. But anyway, so then Greg came, and I tried to stay home. But it was, I couldn't do it because it was just getting us further into debt with that extra money at the time, you know, making the house payments and him come in so quick and all that kind of stuff.
So you're back to work.
So, yeah, they kept calling me, asking me, are you sure you don't want to come back to work? So I did, but by that time, they had, you know, since I'd said no,
Perfect timing.
they had moved someone else
We're
up, so I had to go back as just a regular clerk. But I was still the manager's
You're still
secretary,
Oh,
manager's
yeah.
secretary.
Oh, who
Yeah.
took care of the kids?
You know, I got a little older, 67 or 68. A tiny,
Oh.
about maybe smaller than you. She lived on a farm by
I've got
herself.
rice.
And someone told me that she was looking for some extra money making work, and she had never been married. And she said to look at her, you'd think she's tough as nails and rough. I said,
You need a bag?
Sure.
she's really sweet.
Thanks.
So I called her, and she came out and seemed to like the kids, you know. And see, Greg was just 6 months old.
Yeah.
And didn't have any trouble, you know, putting him on her hip, you know, and walking around, looking and walking around outside and everything. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try it, even though she hadn't had kids. And she was wonderful. Had to buy special food for her because she did have some kind of, I can't remember, it was a liver problem or what.
She come to your house
She
then?
came to my house, and she would fix food for the kids and everything. And then one time, and she was always there, you know, early.
Yeah.
And she didn't show up one time. So we tried to call, and she didn't answer. And so of course, I called work, Neil called work, because we didn't know what we were going to do for sure. And finally, I talked Neil into driving over to her house, and he found her kind of hanging inside and out of her car.
Oh.
She was conscious, but what she had done, every morning she would get up and she'd go out to the barn, get the hay or whatever it was to feed her cattle that she had. And she had pulled on a big square bale of hay to pull it down, and the string thing broke, and she fell back real hard on the ground and broke her leg. And she knew that she thought nobody would find her there, you know. She lived out in the country also, and it wasn't on a paved road or anything. She had crawled and inched her way to the car and got up in the car enough that she could honk the horn. And, you know, if she heard someone coming by, she would try honking the horn. And she had finally just given up and was just laying there, wore herself out, and Neil found her. And then, of course, he got in the house and called the ambulance, and they came out and got her. So they said she was going to, because of her age and because of the kind of break it was, that she was not going to be able to get better right away. So then I immediately started looking through the phone book, you know, that same afternoon, trying to find someplace where I could take the kids or something. And there was a place called Happy House that was a child care center.
Now, where were you living at the time?
About 9 miles south of Springfield.
Of Springfield. Okay.
It was on old
You guys
60th Street
need help.
Highway
Nope, we're
towards Rogersville. Our address was Rogersville,
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
but we actually lived just as close. Chris started school in Rogersville.
You didn't happen to know a Ronnie Warwick down there, did you?
I had no idea. That was
Oh,
so
you didn't
long
know.
ago. That was 40-some years ago almost.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anymore. There was one lady. Well, anyway, I did that. Left him there. Chris was fine with that. Gregory, I think I told you before, would be screaming like hell. We had a little Volkswagen Beetle at that time, and he'd get a hold of that strap, and I'd have to go like this, get his fingers undone, you know, to get him out of the car, and just screaming all the time. Take him in there, crying like he was dying. He'd stand there at the door, like, listen to me, don't leave me
Oh, I
alone.
was there. Kindergarten, Jay did that.
And then I'd come back after him.
With Cheyenne.
He would be there doing that. You know, and it finally got to the point where I told the lady, I said, you know, I'm gonna have to quit this. I can't take this anymore. And Neil couldn't do it. He would go pick him up. And she said, honey, it's okay. Richard out of sight says he goes and plays with the kids.
Yeah.
Now, she said, I don't know how
Stinker.
he does it, but he
Jay did the same
knows
thing.
when you're coming back, and he's at that door, and we can't keep him away. He's at that door crying. We've done something terrible. But by then I was work, and I was going to quit.
Yeah.
And Neil was making more money, and we thought maybe we could.
My evil plan worked.
Apparently.
Everywhere.
So, and then about.
Even then you
year
were a
after that.
manipulator,
What
haha.
are you talking about?
About a year and a half to 2 years after that, the government decided to
No, you
close that
didn't hear
Mark
that.
Twain
Yes, he
office.
did.
Oh, they did.
So we had the choice of either moving to, I think it's Minneapolis, wherever their home office was, or Rolla. And Neil opted for Rolla because that was close enough to his parents. See, his mother was 45 and his dad was 51, I think it was, when he was born.
Oh,
He
oh,
had-
wow.
He had nephews.
Unusual for that time.
Yeah, he had a nephew 6 months older than himself and a nephew 6 months younger, and they grew up like brothers. The doctor didn't think his mother was pregnant. She was a large woman. And the doctor didn't think his mother was pregnant, and she knew she was,
I'm just listening.
but the doctor didn't think she wasn't, but she was. She was pregnant with Neil. Anyway, and he slept with his mother all the time because she was his little boy. German family. His dad did not thought the job of raising kids belonged to the woman, not the man. So Neil learned how to fish and to paint from cousins.
Oh,
Kind of German going into things, but
Huh.
his dad didn't think they would.
yeah.
His dad had a nervous breakdown one time. He
Oh,
was always
gosh.
afraid that he would have one, you know. Anyway, we moved to Rolla and had to live in a motel for a month, trying to find a house because it was a seller's market at that time. And not many houses available either. So we did finally find a house, and then, I don't remember how I got in touch. Some way the conservation department had an office there, and they asked if I would be willing to do some clerical work for them, kind of need my own hours. And I thought, yeah, because I couldn't just stay home all day. You know, Greg by that time, see, when we moved to Rolla, was ready to go into kindergarten and Christmas.
Oh,
in
so you had them
first-
both in
And
school.
Christmas in first grade. Well, Greg, whenever school started, I told him I would as soon as, you know, we got settled. Well, Greg would, I'd take him there and I'd have to stay with him a while at kindergarten. And finally,
Still being a stinker.
I got to the point where I said, I will sit out in the car, Greg, and I will be right out here. So when school's out, you know, I'll be out there waiting for him.
Liar.
Pants on fire.
And
I've
so
heard
after I'd
this
done
one
that
quite
for
wrong.
about a week, I thought, this is silly. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna go and I would go to work early, you know, and get my work done for conservation and come back and wouldn't have to do it later. And then they call at the school and Gregory is gone. Somehow he got away
You
and they didn't know where he
escaped.
was.
He was looking for you in the car.
Yeah, looking to see if I was
Lying or telling the truth.
So anyway, I make a mad dash there, back there, you know, and everybody's all upset, you know, where did Greg go? Well, they found him, he was walking home.
Walking
I
home.
wasn't
He's
there,
mad
he
at
was
you.
walking home. We didn't know where home was. He was in kindergarten. We hadn't lived there that long, but anyway, he was okay, we found him. So, no more of that. So then there I was again. You know.
With this
But he did-
difficult child.
But then he did finally get to the point of where he kind of had a crush on the kindergarten teacher.
Oh, that helped.
What was her name, Greg? Do you remember?
Actually, I had a crush on that little boy that I played with all the time. You all just thought it was the kindergarten teacher.
She was really cute. She was young and really cute.
What was that little boy's name? That was. Do you
I don't
remember?
know. Don't remember. I didn't like Rolla. Neil didn't like working
Didn't like it.
there either, the type of work he had to do. Rolla was, you either worked for the Geological Survey office there, had a big geological survey administration there, or you worked for the university, or you were a native of Rolla.
Oh,
And they were all very
Well,
cliquish.
There was the forestry service too, wasn't there?
Right, but those were people that were just kind of from knew they were not gonna stay there long because they had been transferred there.
Well, see, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law both worked. He worked for the geological group, John Smith. And she worked for the forestry unit, Patty Smith. And they were there for years.
Were they there in the 70s? I have to ask Neil if he remembers that name. Mostly we hung out with those that had transferred there like we did.
Cause
Yeah,
you
they
were
were-
in county.
And
Actually,
shopping and all that.
John's mother was from Puerto Rico. So, she was a Puerto Rican, and I'm not sure how John got over there, but how he ended up, I probably went to the university there, but Patty was born and raised in Raleigh. Her dad was in charge of the Union, was it Union Telephone Company, United?
United,
United.
because Jeff City is.
He was the head of the United Telephone Company. And her mother didn't work.
So how long were you there in Rolla, and then why did you move
We
there?
moved, we got a house and moved in September, whenever the
In
kids
Rolla.
started in school in Rolla. And Neil heard of a job opening for a draftsman at Whiteman Air Force Base.
Ah, Whitman.
And he decided he wanted to try for that because it would be closer to Stover. And I can't remember if his dad had died by then or not. But anyway, he still wanted to be closer to his folks. I was hoping he would take a transfer overseas someplace so we could go overseas, but he wouldn't have done it anyway because he wanted to be close to his folks. Even though he had two brothers that lived there in Stover, but anyway. So he applied for that job and he got it, and he started work there the following February. So September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months. And he left to go there, and then he lived with his sister and brother-in-law in Warrensburg while I was trying to get the house sold. So we spent most of that summer, the kids and I, at their big Olympic-sized pool. They had a wonderful public swimming pool there, and it was just kind of across the field from our house. And so I could clean the house up in the morning, hoping that they would show it to sell. But whenever we got ready to sell the house, it was a buyer's market.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah, we had one person look at the house, and it was someone who worked in the bank where we had our loan, and they bought it for $1,000 less than we paid for it. Because
You
it was
lost
not
$1,000?
working, Neil was there, we were the